All right, today I'm covering this whole buy now, pay later option that they give people when checking out online. You want to buy something and it may cost too much. And so they give you some options so you can still get it and be satisfied. And then you go on about your day. Now, I've never used buy now, pay later. I've only do buy now, pay now because I don't want an existing bill payment a month or 2 months, 3 months down the line. I don't want to pay in installments. And a lot of times, what people are using this for are clothing, accessories like watches, hats, shoes, things like that, jackets, coats, things that you normally should just be able to buy right out and be done with it. Now, I don't know the exact cost if someone's buying a $300, $400 belt, $800 pair of shoes, or these things are just adding upon each other, and now your bill is coming out to $900, $1,000 for clothes, shoes, and watches. But normally, when I see these buy now, pay later, it's for just those type of material things. It could be some appliances on there, possibly. I don't know. But for me, if you can't afford the pair of shoes to buy now and pay now, and you have to go on a four payment installment plan, can you really afford those shoes to begin with? If you need those options, do you really need them that bad? And so I'm asking the question, can people really afford things in this day and age, especially with the whole buy now, pay later? Have things gotten just that expensive where you need these options? Affirm is one, Klarna is one. Those are two that I've heard of. Klarna, Affirm, maybe others. I know there's a website called StockX where they let you use Affirm, and then you can pay for shoes in four different payments because those shoes they're being resold, so they go over the market price, and so they can be $400, $500. And so they offer Affirm. They run your Affirm runs your credit, and then from there you can get approved to use it. But then take a look at the screen that I'm showing you now that you've seen already about the pros and cons of this buy now and pay later. So we've got some plans come with no interest or late fees. The application process is quick with few approval requirements. And then we've got widely available at many retailers. Yeah, it's definitely spreading around uh, to a lot of websites. I think Karma Loop has it. And then on the other side, we have the cons. So look at this. Look at the interest rate, 30%. That's highway robbery and late fees. Hard to track payments if you got multiple buy now, pay later plans. Hopefully, anyone who's using this is only on one buy now, pay later. I mean, if you're using multiple plans, you probably really shouldn't be spending. And then it can affect your credit. Hopefully, if you're using it, you're paying one time so your score doesn't drop. And then, like I said, it's easy to overspend because you're not paying it right now. You get the bill later, and so psychologically, you start racking up more than you should. So that's another thing that they're probably counting on for you to use it. I've never used any buy now, pay later, like I said, and these cons are enough for me, especially with that interest rate, to really stay away from them. If whatever I'm buying online, I make sure I can just pay it right then and there so it's no lasting bill. If I can't pay it right then and there, then I guess I can't afford it at the time. I don't need it that much. And so people have to, be careful out here. And then I can get why they're using this. If you look at the so-called middle class, I'm going to share this with you all and where they're at in terms of their savings. Here's a lady. She had a TikTok video and she was talking about her experience with her savings. And if you can see what she's saying here, I swear every paycheck put money into savings. There's a StockX pop up there. Spoke it up. I'm putting money into savings, but needing to transfer it back within a few days. And then her registration is due. Her husband's registration is due. I'm not sure what that's a registration for. He said he needed 2 new tires on his vehicle, even though they had a warranty. That's 300, even with a warranty. So I guess that's the discount. Then her oldest child needs braces, a palate expander. Not sure what that is. That's 120 a month though. Then that's $200 or more on groceries. And then she says, forget about feeding your family great ingredients. I think that means healthy food. So now she gets things that may not be the best choice in terms of health, but stuff that has a lot of sugar in it and is not the best for us tends to cost the least. The healthier stuff costs the most, and that's probably by design. And this is what Abby Rose is saying. And she identifies as the middle class, which is at this point almost non existent. So let me go down some more. Now, she did end it up, let's get some more context here. She quit her job because her husband makes enough money that they should be able to live comfortably. And she also said that the cost of the daycare was more than she was making at her job. But it sounds like she needs to get her job back though. So she's saying at some point something has to give. What's going on? How do I save money? And so again, that's probably how this buy now, pay later comes into play, because you got this lady Abby Rose as well as others in the same boat. And so buy now, pay later becomes an attractive option for Abby and others. But again, I wouldn't recommend it. If we go to some of the other people who chimed in, some people in the comments said their savings account totals and it was eye opening. Some said they only have $0 saved. I've heard that a lot. And they said we make the most money we ever have and have zero savings. That's crazy. So they're living paycheck to paycheck. I don't know what most money uh, means. What they were making, they could have been making 40,000. They're making 80,000. So I don't know if people are living above their means as well. We need a little bit more context. And then it says, I think the middle class is one personal disaster away from bankruptcy. I've heard that too, not having emergency funds. Now here's this person here who said, I used to freak out if I had under 10,000 in savings. Now I'm happy when I have over just 150. So that's a big swing. Now here's someone else saying we make almost 100,000 a year and they still have nothing saved up. There's always something that they have to pay. And then here's someone talking about an emergency fund. They're lucky if they have at least 500 to 1,000 for an emergency. Every time they're able to start saving, something happens and the savings gets thrown out the window. I've heard people say that before. And here's another person. She transfers, or he transfers, she transfers money each paycheck to her savings account, but always has to transfer it back because they need the money. She said her husband makes great money too, whatever that means, but they're still only scraping by. And so I'm not exactly sure what people are spending on, what subscriptions they have to like Netflix or whatever the case may be, is causing them to be paycheck to paycheck. Of course, inflation is a thing, and I don't know what they have going on that they could possibly get rid of to get expenses down. So that's definitely something to look into. So that's where this whole buy now, pay later, they see this, and so they offer that, but buy now, pay later can also get you into even more debt and even more complaints from what you see on here. And so I think that's still something that we need to look into. And I'm going to actually play a video that's showing a little bit more about the dangers of buy now, pay later. I went through some of the people and their financial hardships that they're going through right now, and so wanted to say fair use YouTube to this video, fair use. And I want you all to hear more about the dark side of buy now, pay later.
Okay, so to kick things off, something that's really crazy is that the way that these companies actually make money from allowing buy now, pay later options is overall based on people overspending and making poor money decisions. Now, the way that the BNPL companies themselves actually make the big money is based on people not being able to pay off their purchases on time. So if you really think about it, the process itself, of course, isn't built in the consumer's best interest, but let's explain how that actually works. So some of the main BNPL companies are ones that you've probably already heard of at this point. So that's Afterpay, Affirm, and Klarna. Now, what they're really doing when you see those little tiny letters just as you're about to check out your shopping cart, what they're doing is they're giving you these short-term loans that let you pay off your items in usually 4 payments over a period of several weeks. And as of right now, it looks like the average is around 6 weeks. Basically, you sign up for an account with a specific BNPL platform, you give them your name, your social security number, they do a little credit check, and then boom, you're in. Now, typically what'll happen is you'll pay 25% up front, and then the additional 3 payments will come every 2 weeks after that until you've paid off whatever it is that you bought, just to give you guys an example. So what's funny is that this part sounds super straightforward, right? But here's what's actually happening in the back end. The reason that these loans are interest-free is because the BNPL company charges the store, or whichever company selling you the product, a really high transaction fee. So you know how it costs the store more money to actually accept a credit card than it does cash? And once again, for those of you guys that didn't know this, yes, the store actually has to pay Visa, MasterCard, and the rest of them so that you're actually able to go out and, swipe your card and pay. Like, I'm sure you guys have been to those smaller stores who just won't even accept credit cards at all, right? The reason being is because it actually costs them more money. Now, something to keep in mind here is that credit cards have notoriously been the most expensive type of transaction for stores up until now. What's happening now is that the BNPL companies are charging anywhere from 4 to 6%, which is around double the typical credit card charge. Overall, that's one way that Afterpay, Affirm, Klarna, and the rest of them are making their money, through transaction fees charged to the stores so that they can offer this service to literally all of us. Now, if you're like me, you're probably wondering why in the hell would these stores ever be willing to get charged double the price? And you know what? That's kind of the interesting part, right? It's because even though each purchase costs the store more, when people pay with the pay later option, they actually end up spending more money. The strategy is that people basically buy things that they otherwise wouldn't because things feel less expensive. Like, for instance, if one shirt is $100, but I could use BNPL and get 4 shirts for $100 today, great. Even though that's
what I was talking about. Things feel less expensive since you're not paying right away. And so mentally, psychologically, you start to spend more. And that's where we get into trouble with the no savings, paycheck to paycheck, and the rest of it. Let's continue.
Really a lot.
Hey, if you live in one of these cities right here, why don't you own an apartment building? Seriously, let me show you a path that
a lot more money down the line.
And if you're thinking to yourself that people don't really do that, of course they do. Now, it's not going to be as simple as buying 4 shirts instead of 1 all the time, but according to Klarna themselves, consumers actually spend an average of 45% more when they choose a pay later option. Now, this is literally how they market themselves to stores. They say, allow customers to pay with us, then even though you're going to pay us more, the customers are going to buy more, and then you end up making more money at the end of the day, which is a win for them. Now, we even did a poll on our Instagram page earlier today to see what you guys had to say about this, and 42% of you said that they did spend more money than they would have if they didn't choose to pay later. And what I also find really interesting is the consumer mindset here. Now, we've read countless different arguments online about people saying how they use buy now, pay later options because it's better to have the extra money, or because they'll use the other money in better places until they end up paying off the purchase. Now, even in our poll again, 29% of people said they wanted to keep more money and use it elsewhere. Now, realistically, 2 weeks or even up to 6 weeks isn't really enough time to use that money to invest it or to grow it. And if you're aiming to do that, keep in mind that it's really risky. And even more than that, people just don't do that, according to countless different BNPL studies. Instead, they keep spending more, just like Klarna advertises that they will. So the stores and the companies that are selling us products want consumers to spend more money. And that's even why they allow people to pay later in the first place, even though they're going to be charged more money themselves. But how do the buy now, pay later companies actually profit? Now, one way is obviously from those high transaction charges that we mentioned before, but that's not how they make the big money. That actually comes from something else that, once again, hurts the consumer. Now, remember how we said before that you pay 25% up front and then the additional 3 payments are made over 6 weeks? Well, if you miss a payment, that's when you're charged. And it's either interest that can really add up or with Afterpay, for example. They actually charge an $8 late fee 10 days after the payment was missed. And again, if you're thinking that $8 isn't that bad, it is if you bought something worth $50. Is it worth spending an extra $8 on a clothing item or whatever you bought? Probably not. But that's not even the worst outcome. With Affirm, instead of being charged a late fee, it says that instead late payments can impact and lower your credit score. Now that's a lot more impactful and not worth it than the $8 is. And that's a big part of BNPL versus credit cards. It doesn't build your credit score up like credit cards do, but it could potentially hurt your credit score and bring it down.
So even though the option to pay later might feel like a win for anyone who's just out here buying things, the real winners by far are the BNPL companies and the stores that are getting you to buy more things. Now, this doesn't mean that the consumer isn't ever going to benefit from paying later. We actually saw this one article that talked about using an installment plan to pay for those one-off emergency purchases. Like, for example, let's say you have an emergency fund, and once again, that's awesome, but an emergency purchase comes up like having to buy a new oven. That's obviously going to be pretty expensive, and even if you have the money in your emergency fund, you might choose to do a pay later option to have that money still sitting in your account for 6 more weeks in case anything else happens. And now in this case, you'll have the money to pay it off without having to worry too much. It's just more of a precaution. What is crazy though is that even though I just gave you guys this like really great practical one-off example, this still isn't how.
Now, an oven, things that are much bigger that allow buy now, pay later, that's more of a need. That's understandable. And trying to break those down into installments so you can pay it out throughout later months instead of all right at once, unless you have to pay all right at once. That's fine. But you have to ask yourself, how often are you buying an oven? How often are you buying a refrigerator? How often are you buying a water heater or a furnace? They have their issue, or you need pipes fixed. A person comes out to your home, fixes it, and it should last for some years. So people aren't getting into trouble by doing buy now, pay later with some of the most expensive appliances. This is happening from just things that they want to have so they can go out and hang out, go on vacation, and look nice. And then they get into trouble just overcharging other smaller price material things, like I said, hats, watches, things of that nature.
Most people are using the service, right? Like the majority of BNPL purchases are on clothes and for things that are for around the house. And what's interesting is that on top of people not using it in a way that's actually going to be beneficial to them, young customers specifically are now using multiple buy now, pay later accounts. And think about it this way. If you're buying multiple items every month and all of a sudden you have 5 different installment payments coming out of your account, it's going to get hella confusing and hard to keep track of all of them pretty quickly. Overall, the only time that BNPL is truly a benefit to you is when you can actually afford what you're buying, and if you're not using it as an excuse to just keep buying more things, something that obviously involves a lot of self-discipline. Now, something new that's happening with buy now, pay later is that there's a lot of conversations around actually regulating the industry. Right now in the US specifically, there's no federal regulations designed for BNPL. For now, they aren't completely unregulated because they are covered by lending laws that already exist, but it's likely that there's going to be new specific regulations that come into place for this service. Now, what is crazier is that we read that having regulations might actually even help BNPL even more. If you really think about the psychology of just how people reason, basically we're going to see a lot of people all of a sudden start to say, oh, well, now it must be safe because, it's regulated. But really the reality is that there's a lot of things out there, I'm sure you guys know of some, right, that are dangerous and lead to shitty financial situations that are quote unquote allowed and regulated.
Either way, people really need to look out for these true costs that they could get charged if they are going to end up using a buy now, pay later service. And Klarna was even sued earlier this year for not warning customers about overdraft or non-sufficient fund fees. So basically, if the BNPL purchase was taken out of someone's bank account and they didn't have enough money in there, it caused their bank to charge them really high fees. Now, lesson here is that you need to look out for your own interests. Keep in mind that these companies are just trying to profit off of you. Okay, but now I also really want to make sure that we talk about how buy now, pay later services just got even more dangerous. and that's specifically with different companies like Credova. Now, this is a newer BNPL company that looks just like the other ones. Similar font, light pastel colors, looks really nice and fun and appealing. I don't know if you guys noticed, but they all kind of look the same. But this company is actually giving people the option to buy guns using these installment plans. Now, this means that they're making them even more accessible to more people, and especially to more younger people. Again, that's even part of the strategy here. They're literally trying to attract a new generation of customers by selling guns online, first of all, and then also using BNPL to get younger people who have less money to spend. Now, you can actually check out this article here if you want to read more about this, but I think it's super interesting. And it's also an interesting visualization of how these companies can truly be a danger to consumers.
All right, guys, that's a wrap on this video. And quickly before you guys click off, let us know down in the comment box below if you've actually used BNPL before, and if you've actually.
All right, so you all kind of get the gist of it. Again, fair use, YouTube, fair use. And it sounds to me like they're trying to attract a whole nother generation of debt with the younger generation and people who don't have money to spend right away, 17, 18. And then, the overdraft fees, Klarna, they're making a lot of money off of this. And you're actually paying more for something than you would if you just were to buy it outright. So, Klarna knows the game and what they're doing. And they're just attracting more people who are willing to put their wants over their needs, playing on people's emotions and, gotta have it now. We live in that type of world, everything fast, sped up, and people just really got to weigh their options here in terms of the type of debt you can get into if you decide that you want to use buy now, pay later. And even like he said in the video, most of this stuff is being spent on everyday things that you should have the money to just buy outright. It's not anything that's super expensive where buy now, pay later makes sense, where if it's a $3,000 purchase, something like that, for something that's needed for your home to actually be able to operate, something dealing with electricity, something dealing with heating or cooling, things like that. So no, these are just everyday things people want to get so they can go out of town. And they really like the younger people who don't have a lot of money like that, but hey, I can just use this Klarna, or like I said, there's another one called Affirm, and still get what I want and take pictures when I'm out of town. So they're playing on all of that and making a lot of money off of the general public at the same time. Overdraft fees, everything. So I don't know if anybody who's listening uses buy now, pay later. If you do, let me know in the comments. Have you experienced some of the dark sides of it, like they say, where you didn't know about a certain fee? Or have you been able to stay on top of your payments and you maybe only used it once or twice? Let me know in the comments your feelings on buy now, pay later. Again, I've never used it from my own experience, but just wanted to point this out with, economy, inflation, and how things are going, and where you see people clearly can't afford certain things, and so they're using these programs and getting into more debt, which effectively destroys the middle class. So now you just have rich and poor, and that gap gets wider every day. So like, share, and subscribe. Again, let me know in the comments what you think about the buy now, pay later. Are you using it? And I will be back with another video soon. I'm out.